some more. Can you tell us about the event that led to the construction workers to walk off their job?
Okay, that happened at the Ohio River up close to Newport. They were building a bridge called the Daniel Beard Bridge. This story was told to me by the son of a man who was working on this bridge. This man was actually a Navy veteran, frogman, and he was doing underwater construction at the site up at Newport. He said that the river around there is just a virtual junkyard. Everybody junked threw their old junk cars in it and whatever. He had some other scuba divers were down there one day, and he thought he was swimming across the back of one of these old submerged cars. But suddenly it began to rise up, and as it rose up, suddenly he saw a tail come up out of mud, and it was a fish. But the fish tail was about 3 feet long, and it slowly rose on up out of mud, and it was a catfish, 15, 20 feet long, with a mouth he described as being about the size of a 100-gallon stock tank. And it didn't bother them, but it circled the divers the whole time they were trying to work. So they came back to the surface, and they refused to go back down. They did walk off the job. And the man said that he doesn't know whatever came of the catfish or who took his place or anything else about it because they had walked off the job. But this particular area is also known for having several drowning victims and boating accidents, and the bodies have never been found. And he always said he knows exactly what came of those bodies, that they were fish food. And he also made a comment he loved to eat catfish, but he had no desire to be eaten by one either.
Yeah.
So they refused to go back down after that.
Wow. Well, what advice can you give to someone who is interested in starting out and looking for Bigfoot creatures?
Well, first off, don't believe anything you see on TV. It's not that simple.
Yeah.
A lot of these shows, they walk out in the field, and we're not there 15 minutes, they've already found a Bigfoot or something. It doesn't work that way. Be persistent. You don't need a lot of fancy equipment. I've done more just with a pair of boots and a camera than they've done. A lot of these other people have done with their sophisticated equipment. Basically, just be persistent. And really, you've got a better chance of seeing something if there's an area of woods that's known for having a Bigfoot. You're not likely at all to see it. If you go walking deep into the woods, you're not likely to ever see it because you're in its domain. You're better to scout the outskirts of the woods in hopes of catching it as it emerges for water or goes across a clearing to another set of wood or something like that. So stay in your fringe areas, your back roads. It travels roads at night just like a human will, because it's just like a human. It's going to take the easiest possible route, and roads are much easier to walk on if they're not, heavily traveled, or they're much easier to walk on than trying to stumble around on trails through the woods. So stay, on your back roads, your fringes. Game cams are very valuable, but always use 2 game cams so one can verify the other one.
Right.
So if you get an image on one, you'll be able to tell, the other one will verify what you just saw. That way, if, like certain things, like I saw a picture once where a squirrel was set on top of one and hung its tail over the lens. So just like a big red creature beside of the tree, but then the lens backing it up clearly showed the squirrel sitting on the other camera. So always use at least 2 cameras to verify each other more if you've got them. You always, have backups so they can verify each other.
Well, now you've done it. Now I'm going to have to get Chris another trail cam because
well, he needs at least 2. But another thing, just I always say, just takes patience and shoe leather. And you're not. It's not impossible, but you're not going to just walk out in the woods and find one. If it's that easy, there wouldn't be a mysterious creature.
Right.
So, and as far as your castings go, you can use plain old plaster. You don't have to get anything fancy. You really don't have to sink a lot of money into this. You could even use cans of this spray foam that they use for insulation.
Yeah.
That works very well, too. Just spray it into your track. takes a while to dry, but it leaves a good track too. So you don't need to go out and invest in dental cement and these things like that, as some people tell you need. You don't need all that, because you're going to have to fund everything yourself.
Yeah, it does. It gets to get costly.
Right, and you don't have to spend that much money on it. Like I said, the main thing is patience. It's not going to hurt you. I mean, like I said, respect it, but it's not going to hurt you. Now, again, don't pick a fight on it. Don't take its food or get between it and its baby. That's probably one of the biggest mistakes most people make in any kind of wildlife encounter, is to wind up getting between a mother and its baby. And that's an extremely dangerous thing to do with any species.
Right.
So always be aware of that. But other than just plain old common sense safety rules in the woods, there's really not a whole lot to it. It's persistence.
Okay, want to get this out real quick before we run out of time. We got about 10 minutes. I want you to tell us a little bit about your new book that's coming out in December of this year, Fangs Across America. Can you tell us a little bit about what your book's going to be about?
It's called Case Studies of Fangs Across the Americas, Case Studies of the American Werewolf. Basically what I've done is taken various werewolf legends in America. There's about 20 different legends in America. Offer to give a brief narrative of each one, the locations and brief history of it. And then at the end, I try to tie it together into what I think the legend's really based on, actual flesh and blood creature. Now, I started out trying to do the werewolf as a whole, all across the world, but I found out in Europe the werewolf legends are so mixed in with nationalism and racism and religion, and it's just totally impossible to study the European werewolf. It's got such a mismatch of different stories. But the American stories are still pretty well pure, and they're much easier to study. So it's just a accumulation of legends dealing with just werewolves in America. Now, again, I don't believe in werewolves. This is a cryptid, not a werewolf. It's not a man that changes into a wolf or any of that foolishness. This is actual flesh and blood cryptid, and that's what I've written about in the book.
Now, I got a little bit off of your website where you mentioned that you're talking about your breakthroughs that you have found regarding the werewolves.
Uh-huh. Okay, well, when you take all the stories, I mean, the actual story of each creature is different, but when you start comparing the physical description of the creature, every one are the same. I don't care if you're in far northern Canada or in Panhandle, Texas. It's the exact same creature. And its habits and everything go right back to another creature that's very controversial right now that was once thought extinct, but scientists are reconsidering this possibility. And I genuinely believe that this is actually, the werewolf legend as a whole is based on a once thought extinct creature who is actually still living. It's a creature that belonged to the genus Epicylon. It's a
wow.
And I genuinely, this first one man, the Ivan T. Sanderson, threw his story out back in the 50s. Of course, he was laughed at the time, but now a lot of scientists are actually taking it serious that these creatures are not extinct, and that they are, in fact, the whole werewolf legend is based on these creatures.
Okay. And also, I got this a little bit after where you were advertising your book. What alleged cover-up by law enforcement officers may have involved a werewolf? Okay.
This occurred in Kentucky, in an area called the Land Between the Lakes in western Kentucky. This occurred right in the beginning of the tourist season. The Land Between the Lakes generates millions and millions of dollars to the local economy. That's about the only economy this area has. And as the story goes, supposedly it was leaked out by two local law enforcement officers. They got a call that there was a couple of dead bodies at a campsite. When they went to the campsite, they found a camper. His door was ripped off. There was blood all around the campsite, and they could make out that there had been a killing there. And the bodies were in pieces, but they were able to piece together the bodies and determine that there was two men, a man and a woman, and a small boy. And at first they thought there was 3 victims, but as they began to search the campground, they discovered articles that led them to believe there's also a female involved. So they fanned out into the woods, and about 50 yards from where the camper was, they discovered the body of a girl. Now, the coroner came in. At first they thought it was made of work of a man with a chainsaw or a axe or something. But the coroner came in and started examining the wounds and determined that it was not any kind of cutting instrument that caused these injuries. It was actually teeth and claws. And there's nothing in that area big enough to cause that kind of damage. But sometime after that, people came in from higher up in the government and actually sent the local people home. And the story was basically killed. It was not reported. And the local people that were there, that did do the initial investigation, were actually threatened by higher up government officials. They were threatened that they would lose their jobs and lose their pensions and so forth. So there was definitely a cover-up. This was never reported in the news, and the only way that it ever leaked out was these 2 local law enforcement officers did leak it out sometime later. It occurred in the early 1980s. But this area generates so much money for that area that news of a mass murder, especially one that possibly involving some kind of beast, would be extremely bad for business.
Right.
So the locals feel like it was just plain covered up. And everybody that lives in that area, even the ones that don't know the story, will tell you something did definitely go on at that time in 1981 because of the number of state vehicles and so forth. It was very busy area for a brief time, and then it was just totally hushed up. So people allege that this was covered up, and some creature actually killed these people, but it's hushed up by the higher up government officials, mainly for money.
Right. Yeah, I read a little bit about that last week on the internet about that whole killing, and if it was a creature of some sort. Yeah, it was pretty interesting. So, what other cryptids have been seen in Kentucky?
Well, Kentucky has, the werewolf creatures, the Bigfoot, the catfish. We have 3 area lakes that have some type of huge water snake type creature in it. We have a couple of species of snake that aren't supposed to exist, but people claim they're in the mountains, claim that they're here. One of them is a flying snake. Now, flying snakes exist, but they're only supposed to exist in Indonesia. But the mountain people claim that there's a snake in eastern Kentucky that will fly the same way as these snakes. Now, it's not supposed to be here, but nevertheless it is. We have some reports of a humanoid lizard-type creature that's been seen up around in the Ohio River area. A few reports of thunderbirds. Mothman has been seen here a few times. And let's see. I guess that's about it.
So I guess we need to move to Kentucky to find out to do more research on
Well,
all these
Kentucky
cryptids.
has about everything, that's for sure.
Well, Ron and Lori, if somebody needs to contact you for an investigation or Ron for a sighting, what is the best way for somebody to contact you?
Well, they can send us an email, which is, our email address is boo, at gatewayghost.com.
And that'll get either investigations or sightings?
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any upcoming events, lectures, anything?
Well, let's see. We'll be in Ohio in May, and then we'll be in Georgia in the end of August. And then I'll be doing a lecture in South Dakota in May. And we'll be doing another lecture convention in Louisville in August. And then that's all we have booked right at the moment.
Oh, great. Well, Ron and Lori, I want to thank you guys so much for being on my show tonight. I've learned so much about cryptids. Still a little out of my comfort zone and intimidated by them, but I'm getting there. I'm working on it.
You'll be okay.
But I want to thank you guys so much for taking time and being on my show, and I want to thank all my listeners out there. And we're going to get ready and let the next show air, and I hope everybody has a safe night. So for all you
Okay.
listeners,
Thank you.
thank
Thanks
you.
for having us.
Oh, you're very
Thanks a lot.
welcome. For now, for all you listening, do yourself a favor, go lock your doors, close your blinds, and don't forget to look under your bed. However, it may not do any good, because whether you believe it or not, the paranormal is real, and it's all around us. I'm Vonda McDaniel, and you've been listening to Haunted Harvest Moon on Z Talk Radio. Until next time, stay safe.